Hello, it is Linda, and I am telling you today about my March wrap-up and April TBR for the year 2021. And so today I'm going to start with nonfiction that I read during the month of March. Actually, I'm reading 4 books long-term. This one is The World Rushed In by J.S. Holliday. It's about the California Gold Rush. It is a wonderful story that is mainly told by the diaries and letters of William Swain and his family. I love this book. I love it. And so I'm going to continue reading it. I'm in chapter 5 now out of 12 chapters. And the first 9 chapters are about his journey from New York to California. So right now the journey is taking me through the state of Wyoming. Well, what is now known as Wyoming, because it wasn't known as Wyoming back then. He just left Fort Laramie and is proceeding westward. So the other history book that I'm reading is George Washington's World. I've been reading on this for a couple of months now. I'm more than halfway through. I'm reading about the Revolutionary War. It is a juvenile history, and it won the, it was a Newbery Honor book in 1942, and I am enjoying this quite a lot. Now I have 2 gardening books that I'm reading also. This one is The Earth User's Guide to Permaculture. I'm on page 40, learning things about permaculture, not hurrying through this book. It's kind of heavy information for me. I've never studied that kind of gardening before. And then this is organic gardening, the natural no-dig way, because I have noticed on my property that there are rocks underneath the surface and I don't really want to have to rototill it, so we're going to go with Charles Dowding's methods. Next, let's talk about novels. So my favorite novel that I read during the month of March was Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. It is just so well written. It won the Women's Prize for Fiction, and it is historical fiction about the life of William Shakespeare. Totally recommend it. And I did DNF a book. I DNF'd The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Didn't like it. Didn't take me long into the book to realize that that book was not for me. And I sold it back to Audible. Isn't it nice of them to refund your money or point? You already buy the points, but they'll refund the point if you decide that you really don't want to read that book. So that's history for me. And I'm also doing a buddy read with Alan of Big Hard Books and Classics and Barb of The Font. She does the Font channel with her friend Isabella. And I recommend that channel. It's very good. I enjoy watching their videos, both Alan and Barb. So we're communicating on Voxer and reading together Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. I read a couple of James Baldwin books when I was a teenager, and I liked them, I guess. I didn't really comprehend The Fire Next Time. I should probably read that one again sometime. But this one, Go Tell It on the Mountain, I just love the writing style, and it is semi-autobiographical and very religious because he was raised Pentecostal. And so let's go on to the wonderful world of Mitford. It was only a few days after I had already posted my TBR video that I found out about the Year in Mitford read-along that's happening here on BookTube, and decided that I wanted to participate. However, it was the 3rd month of the year and they were already into book 3 of the series, so I had to hurry through the first 3 books this month. And they are At Home in Mitford, A Light in the Window, and These High Green Hills by Jan Carone. And I got them all read by downloading them from Audible and listening to them at 160%, which was feasible because the reader was really very slow. Now these books were not abridged. They were the full books, and they were quite long. When I went back a few days ago to get the 4th book in the series, I realized that all they had there at Audible was an abridged copy of Out to Canaan, which I'm going to be reading in April. And so I decided to get a Kindle copy instead because I do not like abridged audiobooks at all. So let's go now into the wonderful world of juvenile literature, starting with picture books. And I read this little book with a neighbor of mine. This is Why Is There a Cross? And I did that because she wanted to get a cross just like mine, and I got it for her. It wasn't very expensive, so I got her her own little cross. And then I got this book so I could read it for her, or with her. Actually, we read it together. We took turns reading the stanzas of this poem, and I enjoyed the pictures and everything. So this book is by Kathleen Long Bostrom and illustrated by Elena Kucharek. I thought the pictures were just delightful, and I recommend that if you have a child that you want to give that kind of information to. So the other picture book is the 2021 Newbery Honor Book. It's the only picture book. There were 5 honor books this year, but this one is a picture book, and it is Box. Henry Brown mails himself to freedom. And this is based on Henry Box Brown's slave narrative and a true story of a man who puts himself inside a box and into the mail. And I love the illustrations. They are by Michelle Wood. The poetry is by Carol Boston Weatherford. And the poetry is all in 6 lines. And there's 6 lines in each little poem because there's 6 sides to a box. So nicely thought out book, and I love the illustrations. I'm sort of a picture book connoisseur. I love good picture books. I really love to read them, love to look at the art, and I'm very grateful to own them when I do. So, next we will talk about middle grade March. Well, first at the beginning of the month, I was halfway through Genesis Begins Again, which is a 2020 Newbery Honor book, and I'm into the Newbery books because I've had a long time goal to read all of the Newbery winners and Newbery Honor books. So this was a 2020 Newbery Honor book, and a very nice story about a little girl named Genesis whose father was very irresponsible and drunk, so he didn't bother to pay the rent and they always had to move. And so this is a story of her starting a new school, and she's also obsessing over the color of her skin because her mother is light-skinned and she turned out dark-skinned, and she thinks people don't appreciate her as much because her skin is darker. And it just made me want to cry for this girl because I just wanted to keep telling her, you know, black is beautiful, love yourself the way you are. So interesting book, and I do recommend it. It was just a fun book to read. The first chapter was full of modern day slang. It was sort of like an education to me. This is the group read for middle grade March. I loved this book. It's called The Brave. It was about a boy who is an Ojibwe. He seems to have some kind of strange difficulty in that he has a habit of counting how many letters other people use in their speech, and that can get annoying at times, so he gets bullied at school. So he has problems in his school in LA, and his father and the school staff decide to have him go live with his mother in Minnesota. She lives on the Ojibwe reservation there. And this talks about his adjustment to living with the Ojibways, and also it's magical realism, and it's also a way to mature in some themes to give to a child. I would recommend this for age 15 and up. That said, I really did like the book. I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. Now, I had chosen 5 other books for middle grade March, and I'm going to give them to you in the reverse order of how much I liked them. The one that I liked the least is Turtle in Paradise. Turtle in Paradise took place in 1935 on Key West, and there were just some things in there that were so outrageous. I could not believe in them and was very distressed by what I was reading and what children were reading when they read this book. For instance, there was a group of little boys around age 10 to 11, I would say, and they were babysitting for the mothers in Key West. And basically what they did was they went there with their wagon and they picked up infant babies and put them in swaddling in their wagon and walked around with them to give their mothers a rest. And I just found that so unbelievable that any mother would give her infant child to a group of 10 and 11-year-old boys just to have some time off. I mean, that just says mothers are so irresponsible. Not only was it just one mother, it was a group of mothers, and then other things happened in the book that I just wasn't happy about. And so this was my least favorite, but it's a close tie with the second least favorite, which is The Corn Grows Ripe, which is a 1957 Newbery Honor book. Pretty dated, actually, compared to what we have published today. But it was about a Mayan boy and how he had to go out into the jungle and plant a cornfield to feed his family. And there was a lot of religion in this book, both the Catholic religion that they had there in southern Mexico and also the ancient Mayan gods. And it got kind of strange at the end. I would not recommend it for Christians unless you just want to see what it's all about. The next one, I liked this one a lot more than those two. This is Savvy by Ingrid Law. It was a Newbery Honor book in 2009. And it's about a 13-year-old girl who expects to receive a special savvy on her 13th birthday because everybody in her family on her mother's side receives a savvy. And her brothers had already received their savvies. One of them had the savvy of disturbing electricity and causing problems that way. And then the other one had a savvy of causing storms and raising up the wind, and so she didn't know what her savvy was going to be. And I don't want to give any spoilers here, but this was interesting to read. The one thing that I didn't like about it was that it had a pandemonium scene, and I find this a lot in children's literature, that the writer just feels like one chapter all pandemonium has to break out and the kids are running around like crazy and everybody's kind of confused. And you know, I do not like pandemonium scenes. And other than that, this book was kind of interesting. I enjoyed reading it. And so now let's get to the two that I really liked a lot. This one is Ella Enchanted. I got this one for the prompt of reading a book with a fairy tale vibe. It had gnomes, it had elves, it had centaurs, it had ogres, and it had the human beings, of course, Ella and her family and other people that she knew. So I really enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun to read and totally recommend it. It was a Newbery Honor book in 1998. And the one that I really loved the best from middle grade March is this one, The Evolution of Calpurnia Tate. This little girl wanted to be a scientist and a naturalist, and she wanted to hang out with her grandfather, who was a naturalist. And at the same time, her mother wanted to teach her cooking and sewing and knitting and things like that, because she thought the only thing a girl could do was get married and raise a family. So she was preparing her daughter for that, whereas the girl was observing nature and learning all kinds of scientific things from her grandfather, and really preferred that. So To me, this book was a 5. I know there's a sequel to it, and I really want to read it. I've heard it is just as good as this book. So at the beginning of March, I'm going to be participating in the Drop Everything and Read Along, hosted by Angie at Literary Labors, and it is all about Beverly Cleary. Now, this set of 8 beautiful Ramona books, I ordered on March 15th. And I picked it up from my post office on March 25th, which by synchronicity or coincidence, that happened to be the day that Beverly Cleary passed away at the age of 104. If she had made it to April 12th, she would have been 105. So she lived a long life. But in honor of her, we're going to drop everything and read Beverly Cleary. And I just happened to have the books on hand because I bought these to read with my neighbor, who is about the Ramona age, and I have actually never read the Ramona books before, so I started reading Beezus and Ramona during the month of April, and it is amusing, kept me laughing. I'm looking forward to reading the rest. Now, the only Beverly Cleary book that I've already read is Dear Mr. Henshaw. This was the Newbery Medal winner, and I liked it a lot. It took place in Monterey, California, which happens to be a favorite place of mine because I am a Californian, and Monterey is such a cool place. And it is an epistolary novel, which is like my favorite kind of novel. So I recommend Dear Mr. Henshaw if anyone wants to read a Beverly Cleary book in honor of her passing and her wonderful life. So there is a group read that goes along with that. It is a memoir, her memoir of growing up as a teenager in Yam Hill, Oregon. So it's called A Girl in Yam Hill, and I am looking forward to that. Well, actually, this morning I already read 3 chapters, so getting started. Now, I'm also going to be reading a couple of novels. I'm going to finish up Go Tell It on the Mountain with the buddy read that I'm doing, and also on Go Tell It on the Mountain I only have 1 section left, so I'm pretty close to the end of that. I'm going to be also reading Persuasion by Jane Austen and Out to Canaan, which is one of the Mitford books. I'm going to be reading more juvenile literature, even though it isn't middle grade March anymore, because I have that goal of wanting to read all the Newbery Honor books and medal winners. So I'm going to start with Waterless Mountain by Laura Adams Armour, and this was a Newbery Medal winner in 1932. Next, I want to read What Hearts by Bruce Brooks, and this was a Newbery Honor book in 1993. Next, I'll be reading When You Trap a Tiger by Tay Keller, which won the Newbery Medal this very year, 2021. And I'm going to be reading some Newbery Honor books from 2021. This one is We Dream of Space, and it's by Erin Entrada Kelly. This is by Christina Soontornvat, A Wish in the Dark. Also want to read it this coming month. And I want to read Fighting Words by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. So those are all the books that I have planned to read during the month of April. Quick life update. Yes, I got my property cleared off. It looks fantastic and I'm really happy about it. I'm going to be planting a cover crop of clover on that within the next week or 2. So looking forward to that also. And probably not rebuilding for a couple of years. Of course, life may surprise me and things might happen faster, but I'm not counting on it. I'm just going to go a day at a time, and right now I'm waiting for the property to be tested for toxins. They took soil samples and I'm waiting to get the results of those. So unless it has clean soil samples, there will be no building. So that's a very important part of the process. Anyhow, end of video, and thank you for watching.